In early September of 2023, former adult film star Katherine Cabella was arrested for rear-ending a cat at a red light in Plantation, Florida, while intoxicated. The incident occurred on September the 3rd, and Cabella fled the scene in the immediate aftermath. Law enforcement caught up with her in an area parking lot. During the officer's interaction with the former starlet, the cop noticed that she exhibited bloodshot, watery eyes and that the smell of alcohol was emanating from her when she spoke. She refused to submit to a breath test and performed poorly during field sobriety tests. Cabella, who'd performed under the name Kitty Bella, initially asked the officer if he wanted her to do jumping jacks or toe touches. During a walk and turn exercise, she told the cop that she was a bit dyslexic and naturally wobbly. The tests were stopped for the woman's own safety and she was arrested on suspicion of DUI. The incident occurred roughly 2 years after Cabella was responsible for a nearly fatal hit and run in Miami-Dade County. On March the 25th of 2021, she slammed her black Mercedes-Benz into Miami Beach pastor Noe Aguilar. While he was biking home on the MacArthur Causeway, Aguilar was thrown from his bike and suffered a serious head injury. Cabella abandoned the victim and kept driving to meet a celebrity friend, identified as Lamar Taylor, a creative director for pop star The Weeknd. The accident was discovered after she left her car, which had a dented hood and broken windshield, with a valet at the Continuum. The pastor was rushed to Jackson Memorial Hospital's Ryder Trauma Center, where he underwent emergency surgery to stop a bleeding on his brain. Aguilar was in a medically induced coma for several weeks but ultimately recovered. Cabella, who admitted that she was drunk behind the wheel and that she'd fled in a panic, faced felony charges of leaving the scene of a crash with serious bodily injury and reckless driving. She avoided prison and was given house arrest. For the latest incident, she was booked at a Broward County jail on charges of driving under the influence, driving with a suspended license, and violating probation. Number 6. Camila Navaro. On June the 24th of 2023, a group consisting of 3 women and 2 men was stopped at Carrasco International Airport in the Uruguayan capital Montevideo as they were trying to board a flight to Madrid, Spain. Upon checking the suitcases belonging to one of the men, the authorities found that it had hidden compartments that held 6 cocaine packages with a total weight of over 14 pounds. Law enforcement then separately spoke to the other members of the group, including 27-year-old adult actress Camila Navaro, who performed as Mia Echeverria. She was one of the main stars on Uruguay's adult channel Divas TV and was once in a relationship with retired soccer star Richard Morales, aged 48, with whom she shared 2 daughters. Morales represented Uruguay in the 2002 World Cup and had mainly spent his club career in Spain at Malaga and Osasuna. While being interviewed at the airport, Navaro denied having had any knowledge of the cocaine trafficking plot. An examination of her phone, however, revealed that she was not only aware of the operation but experienced enough to instruct other members of the gang on how to avoid detection. In telegram messages she'd written, "It is your attitude that will determine your trip, you understand?" before telling them to be as touristy as possible, advising that they should travel listening to music and take lots of photos without uploading them until they reached their destination. Navaro ultimately admitted her involvement under a plea bargain and, according to updates from October of 2023, was jailed for 2 years and 7 months. Morales paid all her legal fees during the trial, which he explained as an effort to protect their daughters from any media exposure generated by the incident. Number 5. Michelle Thorne. Adult film actress Michelle Thorne was arrested by law enforcement in Downend, South Gloucestershire, England, after crashing her Peugeot into a pub fence on December the 19th of 2016. Thorne, who'd also appeared on X Factor in 2005, reportedly got into a drunken argument with a relative while at the Willie Wicket pub. According to witnesses, the 41-year-old adult star then climbed into her vehicle and reversed into the pub's fence before speeding away from the parking lot. She went into a roundabout and returned to resume the argument. At that point, her father, who was present at the scene, took away her car keys. The police arrived at the establishment and took Thorne into custody after she was found to be over the drink-drive limit. She was expected to appear at Bristol Magistrates Court in January of the following year. Number 4. Bridget Powers. On September the 18th of 2019, law enforcement responded to reports of screams and glass shattering at an address in Las Vegas. Upon making their way to the scene, officers learned that a man had been stabbed by his girlfriend. The attacker was identified as 39-year-old Cheryl Murphy, an adult film actress with dwarfism who performed as Bridget Powers. She reportedly knifed her boyfriend in the calf with a butter knife, following an argument during which she'd accused him of sleeping with other women. Surveillance footage showed Murphy delivering a profanity-laced verbal tirade in addition to throwing an object at her boyfriend's front window. The man was hospitalized with injuries that weren't deemed life-threatening, while Murphy was arrested in order to keep her distance from him. Prosecutors would subsequently argue that she'd gone to his home with the specific intention of committing a crime. Murphy, who debuted in the adult industry in 1999 and had appeared in over 100 films, faced 15 years in prison for burglary while in possession of a deadly weapon, as well as 5 to 6 years each for the charges of domestic battery with the use of a deadly weapon and assault with a deadly weapon. Number 3. Roma Lawson. British adult star Roma Lawson went on a 5-week shoplifting spree which started in April of 2023 after she'd previously been given an 8-month suspended prison sentence. Lawson of Herne Bay, Kent, began her spree with stealing items from an Aldi's frozen section, and a few days later she left a Sainsbury's without paying for gin and whiskey bottles. Lawson, who was pregnant at the time, returned to the same store and stuffed 6 vodka bottles into an empty stroller. She employed the same technique while stealing from a Tesco and continued the spree with further supermarket thefts in May. At the end of the month, Lawson, who performed as Romana Ryder, went into Clay Brooks Jewelers in Herne Bay and asked to see a diamond-encrusted ring that she'd pawned months earlier. The 34-year-old then switched the original ring, which was worth several $1,000s, for a fake that was less than $40. The spree ultimately ended in Lawson's arrest. Her pre-existing 8-month suspended sentence stemmed from an incident that had occurred earlier in the year when she crashed her car into a van while high on cocaine. Lawson tried to escape by running through the streets half naked and then bit an officer upon being taken into custody. In spite of violating the terms of her release through the string of thefts, Lawson avoided jail time after a judge considered that drug abuse was at the heart of her legal troubles. 4 months were added to her suspended sentence, and the period for which she had to remain free of legal problems was extended from 18 months to 2 years. The woman was also ordered to complete 6 months of drug rehabilitation. Today's topic was requested by Key Bowden 5646, Cartane09, and Nolan Void 9612. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Jessica Steinhauser. Adult star Jessica Steinhauser, better known as Asia Carrera, appeared in hundreds of explicit films during her career, which spanned from 1993 to 2003. She was the first person of Asian heritage to win an AVN Award for Female Performer of the Year, an award often compared to the Oscars for the adult film industry. In 2014, Steinhauser attracted media attention when she wore a pasta strainer for her driver's license photo. She was able to do so because of her purported religious beliefs. The woman claimed that she was a Pastafarian, a satirical religion which has the flying spaghetti monster as its central deity. The social movement was known for its light-hearted views on religion and has received limited recognition of its legitimacy. A year after posing for her driver's license with the strainer on her head, Steinhauser was arrested for DUI in Utah. On March the 15th of 2015, the 42-year-old woman was found passed out on a couch at the Washington County School District's office, where she'd taken her special needs daughter for an academic test. St. George police officers were called to the scene and they found that Steinhauser exhibited a strong odor of alcohol. The woman admitted that she'd driven her daughter to the address. A breathalyzer test recorded her blood alcohol content at 0.254%, which was 3 times the legal limit in Utah. Steinhauser eventually pleaded no contest to her DUI charge in exchange for avoiding jail time, and she was sentenced to house arrest. We have our release from a while ago about when professors go wrong, right after number 1. Keep watching if you're craving more they will kill you content. Number 1. Timothy Franklin Harper. In February of 2017, adult star Timothy Franklin Harper, professionally known as Cameron Diggs, was arrested in Dallas, Texas for his role in a network that trafficked bulk quantities of methamphetamine. Harper, who performed in gay adult films, was regarded as a controversial figure in the industry prior to his arrest. He was a self-admitted white supremacist, an aspect reflected by several of his tattoos. After his ink was noticed by those who followed his work, Harper was asked about his beliefs and he publicly stated, "We are supposed to continue our race and our culture. When it comes to having kids, I prefer to stay inside my race." His views were regarded as inflammatory on a standalone basis, but also contradictory to the fact that he was a gay adult film star. Leading up to his 2017 arrest, Harper and at least 7 other accomplices had trafficked between 33 and 100 pounds of meth. Several pounds of the drug were reportedly found in Harper's possession when he was taken into custody. In December of 2018, he was convicted for his role in a conspiracy and sentenced to more than 15 years in prison. Number 9. Richard Sigman. 47-year-old college professor Richard Sigman accidentally killed an 18-year-old student during an altercation with a third party on the morning of July the 30th of 2022. Subsequent reports detailed how Sigman had gotten into an argument with a male patron while at a restaurant in Carrollton, Georgia. As the dispute escalated in intensity, the professor allegedly threatened to shoot the other man, at which point he was asked to leave the establishment. Although Sigman complied, he reportedly waited outside near the parking lot, intending to take revenge against the man with whom he'd clashed. When the other man exited the restaurant, Sigman opened fire at him, inadvertently hitting the car that uninvolved student Anna Jones was sitting in. Law enforcement was called to the scene, and the officers who subsequently took Sigman into custody noted that he appeared to be highly intoxicated. In the aftermath, the professor was fired from his job at the University of West Georgia and held in custody without bond. Number 8. Charles Leber. Between 2012 and 2015, a Harvard University professor hid his involvement with the Chinese government and failed to disclose a portion of his earnings on his federal income tax returns. 62-year-old Dr. Charles Leber had been a principal investigator and professor at the prestigious institution since 2008, receiving over $15 million in federal research grants in the span of 11 years. Unbeknownst to his employers, however, had secretly begun collaborating with the Wuhan University of Technology and had also taken part in a Chinese governmental recruitment program. During this time, he was awarded a monthly salary of $50,000, as well as living expenses approximating $150,000. Leber was granted over $1 million to establish a lab at the Chinese university. In 2018 and 2019, when questioned by U.S. federal authorities about his alleged affiliation with the Chinese government and the payments he'd received, Leber denied any wrongdoing. Then, in December of 2021, the professor was found guilty of making a false income tax return and failing to report foreign accounts, as well as several other financial misdeeds. Leber's sentencing hearing was scheduled for January of 2023. Number 7. Windam Latham and Andrew Warren. Northwestern University professor Windam Latham and Oxford University employee Andrew Warren surrendered themselves to the authorities following a nationwide manhunt in the summer of 2017. Both men were suspects in the murder of Latham's 26-year-old boyfriend, Trenton James Cornell Durello. The latter's corpse had been discovered in his Chicago apartment on July the 27th. After a cryptic tip was delivered to the building manager, the victim had reportedly been stabbed over 70 times. Investigators immediately identified Cornell Durello's partner as their prime suspect, a hunch only strengthened by rumors of an affair between Latham and Warren. Security footage subsequently confirmed that both men had been in the building at the time of the murder. When attempts to contact the suspects were unsuccessful, a warrant was issued for their arrests. While 61-year-old Warren eventually walked into a police station in San Francisco, California, to turn himself in, 42-year-old Latham, who specialized in microbiology and immunology, surrendered to U.S. Marshals in Oakland. In a peculiar commemoration of the man they'd brutally murdered themselves, Latham and Warren made donations to a Wisconsin library in honor of Cornell Durello. Warren ultimately pleaded guilty to first-degree murder as part of a plea deal that sentenced him to 45 years in prison. In February of 2022, Latham was sentenced to a minimum of 53 years behind bars. Number 6. Ria Rhind. On the night of December the 23rd of 2019, Massachusetts professor Ria Rhind violently attacked Laurette Savoy, a colleague with whom she'd become infatuated. The two women worked at Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley, where they'd reportedly struck up a solid friendship many years prior to the incident. 50-year-old Rhind decided to confess her romantic feelings for her co-worker during the holiday season, but was flatly rejected, which infuriated her. She began attacking Savoy with garden clippers, a fire poker, and even tossed rocks at her. Bloodied and terrified, the victim went back on her previous rejection and pretended to be romantically interested in her crazed assailant. Eventually, Rhind agreed to call 911 due to the severity of Savoy's wounds. When police arrived, they rushed the wounded woman to the ER, where she was treated for several lacerations and broken bones, most of which were concentrated on her face. Savoy only revealed the identity of her attacker to police officers once Rhind was out of sight. Afraid of how her colleague might react, Rhind was taken into custody while still carrying Savoy's keys, cell phone, and glasses. On October the 20th of 2021, the professor was sentenced to between 10 and 12 years in prison, having been found guilty of armed assault with intent to murder, home invasion, mayhem, and entering the nighttime with the intent to commit a crime. Number 5. Karen Halman. While returning from a spring break trip to Nicaragua in 2015, sociology professor Karen Halman was arrested at the Miami International Airport for her belligerent behavior during her flight. The 52-year-old Penn State associate professor was charged with disorderly conduct for allegedly arguing with several passengers, lighting a cigarette, and ranting about U.S. foreign policy on board the aircraft. After being released on a $500 bond, Halman claimed to have been mistreated by members of law enforcement while she was in their custody. The initial incident on the plane, which had been recorded by a fellow passenger, quickly went viral after being uploaded online in the aftermath. In the video, Halman loudly exclaimed that the U.S. had declared war on Venezuela and called the latter country's former president, Hugo Chavez, a great hero. She even justified lighting a cigarette by stating, "Every revolutionary smokes." During a subsequent argument with another passenger, Halman was accused of being a security threat. Several fellow travelers expressed their irritation with the fact that they'd be missing their connecting flights due to the delays the woman's arrest would cause once they landed. Number 4. Ria Rhind. On July the 27th of 2012, University of California professor Ria Rhind was arrested after police discovered threatening emails targeted towards officials at his late son's school. 48-year-old Rhind's alarming messages described his threats to kill the school's assistant principal in vivid detail. He also reportedly discussed shooting at students and burning the building down. The German-born professor blamed school officials for the death of his young son, Klaus Stub, but hadn't actually sent the emails to his prospective victims. Before his threats ever came to fruition, the messages were discovered by the police while they examined his cell phone after he was arrested 3 days earlier for starting a fire in a Los Angeles park. In the ensuing investigation, detectives were also able to link Rhind to several other instances of arson. During his trial, the disgraced professor apologized for his actions and pleaded for mercy from the court. In August of 2013, Orange County Superior Court Judge Greg Prickett sentenced Rhind to 14 years in prison for his crimes. Number 3. Joseph Shiller. On February 15th of 2017, police raided the home of Oakland University professor Joseph Shiller after receiving tips of illicit activities taking place at his residence. 4 college-aged people were found inside the house, as well as several illegal substances. The 49-year-old professor had been teaching at the university since 2004 and had been awarded tenure 7 years prior to his subsequent arrest. Although Shiller was generally regarded as popular among students, the man had been anonymously accused of hosting parties for co-eds, including young adults below the legal drinking age. The professor consequently faced charges of possession with intent to deliver, felony firearm, and operation of a drug house. In March of 2018, Shiller was sentenced to between 3 and 4 years in prison by Judge Cheryl Matthews. The man was informed that he'd be deported to his native country of Canada upon his release. Number 2. Dirk D Oink. Before June of 2019, Dirk D Oink was considered an expert in papyrology, the study of ancient literature, having been employed at such illustrious institutions as Oxford University, the Oxyrhynchus Papyri Project, and Christchurch, Oxford. After suspicions began to arise regarding the veracity of some of the documents Oink had authenticated, an investigation was launched and his privileges at his various places of employment were revoked. In October of 2019, Oink was accused of stealing papyri and selling the materials to museums, as well as removing texts belonging to Oxford University. The investigation uncovered that more than 120 historical pieces had gone missing under Oink's watch. Several of the museums the disgraced professor had sold the pieces to ultimately agreed to return them to the institutions. Despite the seeming abundance of evidence against Oink, he wasn't arrested until April of 2020. Then in December of the following year, the man lost a federal lawsuit centered around the fraudulent sale of ancient papyrus and was consequently ordered to pay $7 million as restitution. The exact number of historical documents Oink stole couldn't be accurately calculated by investigators. Number 1. Nikolai Stefan Pop. Nikolai Stefan Pop, a 51-year-old business administration professor at York University in Toronto, Canada, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of assault on February the 7th of 2020. Subsequent reports indicated that the incidents in question occurred separately. The first was on January the 3rd and the second 13 days later, although authorities suggested that there could potentially be other unreported assaults. Pop boarded the TTC subway train in Toronto and took a seat next to a pair of young women who he proceeded to grope. The victims managed to take pictures of the assailant and later posted them online in order to warn other potential victims. The women received immediate support from the public and other users shared similar experiences. Several York University students recognized the man in the photos as Professor Pop and promptly contacted the police to report his misconduct. Thanks for watching. Would you rather marry an active adult star or become one yourself? Let us know in the comments section below.